Welcome to The Debrief, where we talk with the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the headlines they're covering this week and where the story's going next. I'm Sarah Westwood, and I'm here today with Editor-in-Chief Hugo Gurdon. And Hugo, this week you wrote in your column about the left's claim that the Supreme Court's decision in Dobbs delegitimizes the Supreme Court, and you argue that this decision actually does the opposite. Why do you say that?
Yes, the argument that Democrats put forward is that because the court overturned the precedent of Roe versus Wade, which has been around for 49, 50 years, it delegitimizes the court. It upends something which people have become used to. And that abortion has become, so that the Democrats contend, I think obviously falsely, is that abortion has become sort of accepted. That isn't true. It's been controversial all that time. The reason I argue is that actually this re-legitimizes the court, is that the court has acknowledged that it made an egregious error of jurisprudence in Roe versus Wade. People across the spectrum, from supporters of abortion to opponents of abortion, those with understanding of the law, including people, for example, like the late Ruth Bader Ginsburg, have acknowledged that Roe was an extremely poorly argued decision. And it was unmoored from anything actually in the Constitution. And what delegitimizes the court is when it is perfectly clear, and as it has indeed become more and more apparent to the public, when it is perfectly clear that the decision they made was a political and ideological one, judging for themselves what they took public opinion to be, which is a political thing, and not hewing to the Constitution. It delegitimizes the court to unmoor itself from the Constitution, because then the public knows that it isn't making a legal or constitutional judgment. It's simply making a political judgment.
Some Democratic proposals to correct, what critics characterize as an imbalance on the Supreme Court is to put the same number of conservative justices and liberal justices on the bench and have that be the structure of the Supreme Court. You also argue that you don't think that would fix the problem.
No, I think that actually is one of the reasons why the problem has been made worse. For a long time, there have been approximately equal numbers of judges who are sort of on the left and those who are on the right, with swing votes of one or two justices in the middle. And people like the idea of balance. Americans in general, the public everywhere, essentially the great majority of people like balance. So what people have argued, and they've argued it particularly from the left, as conservative justices have been nominated, is that it's a very bad idea to unbalance the court. You should have it should reflect the balance in the country. The problem with that is that is a political balance, and it's not a balance of the, and so it suggests that the Supreme Court should be political. But the other thing is, if you think about it, a balance is inherently precarious. If you think of a seesaw or teeter-totter, it is balanced, but if you only takes a little bit of weight one side or the other to tip it one way or the other. So what have we been having over the course of decades is presidents, one after the other, nominating Supreme Court justices. And so you suddenly have the court tips toward the left, or as more recently it's tipped toward the right. So if you have a balance, what you're going to get is the law meaning something different, the Constitution meaning something different from one presidency to the next. And if there's one thing that generally people would agree on, is that a law should have the same meaning 5 years from now as it did 5 years ago. So if you have, as you do now, broadly speaking, a 6-3 majority of originalists and textualists on one side, it's much harder for the balance to be tipped away towards a court that would make decisions on political grounds rather than constitutional grounds. And so you actually have the possibility of stability, because there is this block on the court which will not simply make political or ideological decisions. It will check government overreach by the other branches of government, and indeed by itself. It will not overreach in its judicial philosophy. And it throws the questions that get put to it back to those who are actually elected to do that, the executive branch and indeed the the legislative branch, it says, no, we're not going to make this decision for you. That's what your job is. And that will force politicians to find agreement and to compromise with each other. And it moves things away from the extreme and actually have the legislative branch and the executive making decisions which the voters put them in the positions that they're in to do.
The legislative branch is now tasked with, deciding on abortion. Dobbs sent the question of abortion back to the states. And Democrats, they're heading into what's shaping up to be a bad election year for them, and they're hoping that abortion will be a good thing for their electoral prospects. Do you think they're right?
I think it is true that midterm elections are about ginning up the base, and it is quite possible, in fact likely, that the Roe versus Wade decision, or rather the Dobbs decision overturning Roe versus Wade, will enthuse or fire up the Democratic base. And so you will probably get pretty good turnout from Democrats voting on that. Do I think that this will actually make a difference to the result of the election? Probably not. There's so much else that is looking bad for Democrats. And the abortion issue is way down the list, way down low on the agenda of the general public. Much higher are things where the Democrats are doing very badly and President Biden is doing historically badly. Inflation, the economy, crime, and immigration all, I think, rank higher, particularly economic questions about inflation and sort of general prosperity. So I don't think that abortion has the political impact to overturn all the negatives for Democrats coming into the midterms.
Well, Hugo, thank you so much for being here today. You can get more writing from Hugo and the rest of the commentary team at washingtonexaminer.com.